one subject we want to talk about is something that is relative to this poster that we gave out here, and that's become a very, very common word or term in sport in Canada now. And that's long-term athlete development. Now, I don't know what, if anything, you might know about that, but it's gotten to the point now where the funding that Basketball Manitoba gets from Sport Manitoba, if you know what, like if you've ever been in the building, all the big wigs are on the 5th floor, and the funding filters down to all the different sports. And one of the big factors in funding now is how well we are doing in terms of our programming relative to LTAD. So they're remaking it serious. They believe in it. And we can sit here in Winnipeg and say, I don't buy this, I don't believe in it and all that, but it's all based on scientific research and data. Like if anything in my life, what's happened to sport, and not just basketball, is sport has become much more scientific. And we used to say, well, we think this or we think that. Now we know because everything is measured. And we have all kinds of people doing research now on athletes and on what high performance means and what's best and what's not so good for athletes. So all of this is scientifically based. It's not just somebody making up some kind of fiction. Now, we could spend the rest of the afternoon and all day tomorrow talking about this if we chose to. But basically, just want to point out to you, if you can open it up if you like, but there are 6 steps, I think it's 6, in long-term athlete development. And they are, as you can see, reading from the bottom to the top, what they refer to as active start, which is really young, very young kids just starting out. Now, I can personally relate to that because I have some grandchildren now, believe it or not. You know, you should jump up and say, you don't look old enough to have grandchildren, so say that.
You don't look old.
Thank you very much, thank you. And I went this past summer to watch my 6-year-old grandson play in Timbit soccer. Now, you've all seen this, I'm sure, and whatever, and I'm not saying anything wrong with it, but my daughter, knowing that I'm very involved in this kind of stuff, and she was a basketball player too, is always, what do you think? What do you think? And all this. Like she's, and I just want to sit there and be grandpa. And you know what it's like. These little kids are all thrashing after the ball, and the ball, they all follow the ball and whatever, and the highlight is the snack. You know what I mean? And that's about it. You know what I mean? You've seen it. And all I said to her was, I said, well, it's fine what they're doing, but really us trying to teach 4, 5, and 6 years old to play soccer is really fruitless, really. They're not ready to learn, not just soccer, any sport. And why aren't they ready for that? Because they don't have a foundation of basic fundamental movement, balance, coordination, all those kinds of athletic skills that we all need to play any sport. But what happens often is we as parents and as adults, we impose our values on youth sport too often. And we think that if we get these kids playing soccer at 4, 5, and 6, what will that result in? They're going to be great soccer players when they get to be old or older. And that's proven not the case. So don't think that just because we start sport early and get kids involved in sport early, that necessarily they're going to be better at it when they get older. In fact, sometimes the research has shown the exact opposite, because they burn out, or they get tired of it, or other reasons, because they've played too much. And so there's different stages you go through based on ages, and you can look at them, and I'm not going to go through them all with you, but there's a few important concepts that as basketball coaches we need to discuss. And one of them is already we've mentioned, and that's specialization. Like too many kids nowadays are being encouraged to specialize in a sport too early. You know what I mean? Like they get to be maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age, and already their parents, or they've concluded they're a hockey player, or they're a basketball player, or they're a volleyball player, and that's all they do. And again, all the research shows this is not in their advantage. It is not to their advantage to do this. And again, we think, well, if we get them playing this really early, and we get them into it really, or immerse them into it early, they're going to be better when they get older. And all the research shows that is not true. So if anything, as people involved in athletics, and some of you are physical educators, we should be encouraging kids to get a broad base of sport experience. You know what I mean? Playing everything almost. Like my son-in-law is the best example of that, and it was more not by choice, but he comes from a small town called Holland, Manitoba. Probably some of you have never heard of it. And he went to high school in Treeherne. Now, for some of you, who went to River East Collegiate? Who was I talking to? You went to there's more kids in River East Collegiate than there are probably in the entire school division that Treeherne is in. So in these smaller schools, these kids have to play everything. Because if they don't play everything, they don't have teams. So he played everything. And guess what? He's a really good athlete. He's a very good athlete. And we've got to really start looking. And I'll point the finger here. Basketball is not doing what we could be doing in that area. We could be doing a better job. The worst, in my opinion, and I hate to point fingers, is volleyball. Especially female volleyball. In my opinion. And I'm not saying we're perfect, because we're definitely not. Far from it. But when you look at the number of young women who by the time they get to be 9, 10, 11, 12 years of age, they're totally immersed in volleyball. The school team, the club team, the this team, the that team. And they're going from one team to another. And again, all the research is showing that's not to their advantage. So as coaches, we need to. We sure, and the problem why it happens is because we're competing for athletes, aren't we? And we think if we don't do that, we'll lose some to other sports. But if we really want to do what's best for kids, and really look at the last stage of is what? Active for life. We're not talking about just youth sport here. We're talking about people your age, my age, still being active and involved in sport. Because why? Why is that good? I'm not going to win any gold medals. Probably you aren't either. But why is that good? Louder? Healthy. It's healthy, exactly. Fewer people in the emergency wards. Our health care costs go down and all that. So we want to encourage people from a very active start to sport for life and through the different stages. And one of the problems, again, and this is one thing we've got to deal with in basketball, and you can read it there for yourself, one of the problems in basketball is there's too much emphasis on competition. I was talking to a parent of a young man who's on our provincial team in the summer, and he said that his son had played, he didn't have the data, but he said approximately over 200 games of basketball in that calendar year. From with referees, score kept and everything. Now that's way too much competition. And as coaches, like if I went around the room now and said, like, how many games do you usually have in your season? And how many practices you usually have in your season? Most of the research shows it should be about 3 to 1. And that's 3 practices to every 1 competition. There are lots of places, and I'll be the first to admit it. Like when I coached Pam, we didn't have 3 practices to every 1 because we had too many games going on. We had our conference games, we were in tournaments, and all that kind of stuff. And I know one of the reasons that is because sometimes it's easier to coach in games, isn't it? You just have to stand on the side, yell at a bunch of people, and substitute every once in a while. Whereas in a practice, what do you have to have? A plan, you got to have things to do, you got to have all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times we end up playing way too many games and not training enough. That's why what he does with the CP is so good. Because as he said to you, it's a how many week program was it? 10-week program with some of these elite younger kids. And it's all training. There are I shouldn't say, there's a game tonight. Inter-squad. It ends, inter-squad, tonight, last time, that's it. But other than that, it's been totally training. And so we got to start looking at some of those kind of things. Another thing that relative to basketball, who can I pick on here? Come here for a second, would you? I know you, so come here for a minute. How tall are you? 5'10". Sorry? 5'10". Okay, let's say this happens too often in basketball too. Let's say I'm the grade 6. Who said they're coaching grade 6? Okay, you're the grade, I'm you now. Okay, I'm the grade 6 coach. And we have so-called tryouts. and I see him walk in. Now, the first thing I might say is, you sure you're in grade 6? You should need a shave here. Okay, but let's say he's in grade 6, right? And I look at him. What's the first thing I'm probably going to say? Wow, the jackpot, you got it. This guy's 5'10" already, and he's in grade 6, and like, this is going to be wonderful. So what we do is, and tell me if this doesn't happen. So let's say here is the basket, right? So we tell him, okay, all we're going to do is we're going to stand you there like that. And we're going to have all the other kids out here, the little kids, and we're just going to throw you the ball. Okay, and you're going to hold it over your head, right? Hold the ball over your head, and all these other little people are down here in his belly button. And all he does is turn and shoot and score. And we win. We kill everybody because nobody can challenge him. And we win the trophy and the banner, and everybody thinks I'm the greatest coach since sliced bread. And I'm patting myself on the back and how wonderful this is. And then grade 7 comes, same thing. We stand in there, we keep throwing him the ball, it's still really good. Still really good. And we keep it, and that's all he's doing. And we win again. And everybody, oh, this is wonderful. Time goes on, time goes on. All of a sudden he goes to the high school. Maybe grade 9, grade 10. He walks in the gym. Now the coach looks at him and says, what? Well, you're not that big anymore. There's a lot of kids that are bigger than you. So we want you to now come and play out here and face the hoop and show us what you, and what does he say? Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing out here. I can't, I want to, this is where it's the only thing I let me do. And so then he either doesn't play, he quits, or we cut him. Because he doesn't have the kind of skills that we want him to have and expect him to have. Now really, that's what that can happen and often does happen with coaches. And why do we do things like that? We don't do it because we're thinking of him long term and trying to improve, because you said it, why? Because we want to win. And I'm not saying anything wrong with winning. It's great if you win. But ultimately, my mettle as a coach should be judged what? By, are these people that I've coached at a young level, are they still playing? And have they improved in their skills? That's really what matters. Like whether we win the banner that says grade 6, whatever, that's nice and all that, but where it hangs up in the gym and collects dust. You know, and nobody ever remembers after about a year. So as coaches, we need to really start looking at it differently. Like the worst thing I can do with big kids now is just not let them do anything but stand around the basket. You know, because they don't learn how to play. He should be doing all the things, the dribbling drills, the running drills, the ball handling drills, the passing drills. You know, he should be forced to play the perimeter and all that just like everybody else. So what if he's a foot taller than everybody in grade 6? It doesn't matter. Long term, he needs to do that. Thank you. You can sit down. So that's another part of long-term athlete development we got to start looking at too. Show you this little quick clip here now. This is, you know who Stan Van Gundy is. Now he's not coaching now, is he? He got fired from the Orlando Magic.
Talking on the mic.
So no, that's his brother's on the mic.
They're both on the mic.
Or are they both? Okay, yes. So in other words, he used to be an NBA coach, and when we got this clip, I think he was coaching the Heat even then. Yeah. So this is a few years ago, but not too many. Now the sound may not be great because it's only coming out of this little projector. So listen carefully, I guess is what I'm saying. You may have to move to see it. It's just him talking in a clinic. And you're going to flip lights there for us, Ms. Jiggs, aren't you? Okay, now let's see if I can make this work in the dark. Just give me a second. I'm no...
Is that volume maxed out?
That's it, yeah. Here's the next one. Listen to some of this. It's cute. Now that's obviously a supposedly humorous take on what it means to coach. And the one guy, of course, thinks that just because he played and he has all these so-called plays and presses, that's going to be a coach. What's he going to do if they think he's going to yell at them? There's an article that he's seen that I've seen, and I know who wrote it, but the headline or the title of the article is, Coach, Stop Yelling and Start Teaching. And I think that's what we need to do as coaches, right? It's easy to yell at somebody and all that, but are we teaching them the kinds of skills that they need to have to perform the kinds of things that we want them to do? So a lot of that has to do with long-term athlete development. And the one specific thing that Stan Van Gundy mentions in there that I hope we all are committed to is like that, and I hope they have these rules in your leagues and conferences. Like, we got to teach kids how to play man-to-man defense. Like, zones should be at a young level abolished, because the only reason they work is because kids don't know how to attack them. Like, why don't they are allowed now in the NBA to play some zone. They do play a bit of it, but good teams take apart a zone really easily. But the only reason it works at a young level is kids don't have the skills to do it. And it doesn't teach somebody. Like, we got to learn how to guard somebody. I mean, I always use myself as the example. He's heard this story many times, I think. You know, where I played at the University of Manitoba for 5 years. I'm old, but I'm not ancient, so it's not that long ago. And before I went to the University of Manitoba, I played high school. And in high school, the coach we had, and I thought he knew something, until I left, I didn't realize he knew nothing. But all he did was like I do with you. He told me to stand under the basket defensively. He didn't even call it zone. He just said, stand there. And I was bigger than most people in those days and kind of wave at anybody that came around. You know, and that was my job to do that. And we made it to provincial final. Shows you how bad the rest of them must have been. But then I go to the University of Manitoba, and I start playing there, and in my first year at the University of Manitoba, I started. Now that's the only, it wasn't that I was that good, because I wasn't. We were that bad. We won one game. We were 1-19 in my first year at the University of Manitoba. So I want somebody to do the math here for me. How many games did we play? 20, thank you. They told me this was a bright group. Okay, so we played 20 games. In the 20 games, I recorded 96 fouls. Now do the math on that one. How many could I have recorded? 100, because you only get 5 in a game. So out of 100 that I could have got, I got 96. Now you might think, boy, you were a real butcher. What was going on? Well, it wasn't necessarily. Why was it? Take a guess. Because what did they expect me to do at the University of Manitoba? Guard somebody. And I didn't know how to do that, so I fouled people. Because I not do it on purpose, but my mother used to read this in the paper, and she didn't know anything about basketball. She thought it was like hockey. You got kicked out for fighting. And she'd go, oh, why do you do this? Like, why are you getting thrown out again and all this? And it's not because I'm trying to, but I didn't know how to guard anybody. So it took me, because they never made me guard anybody in high school. So I never learned that. So I hope where you come from, look, how many where you play are zone defenses verboten? Yes? No? They can play them? They can't play them. That's good. Verboten means that you can't do it. You can do whatever. Okay, now I guess, I'm not saying there isn't a place for a zone. Like, I played some zone too in my time, but at a young level, there's no way kids should be playing zone. No way. Teach kids how to guard somebody. And be committed to it. And if your conference doesn't have a no zone rule, then try to get it in. A simple thing like that. Because that's going to be better again for what? The long-term development of these kids as basketball players and as athletes. Question?
I always get confused when we play family or something like that. We're always doing half-court traps, and it's always very close to the zone, just not quite. I always get confused as to what do you...
Yeah, the trouble is, Pam, and you know this as I do, and I wouldn't want to point the fingers, but there are people who you can say there's a no-zone rule, and then they take that and they analyze it. What can I do that maybe wouldn't be called a zone? And they, like I remember when I won't mention his name because I don't want to give his name, but remember when I was coaching long ago, there was a no-zone rule. And there was this coach who was a real stupid, wild, crazy guy. This is what he would do. He had one very good player. Very good player. And so here was the court like this. So when they were on offense, he would stand one person here, one person here, one person here, one person there. And his real good kid had the ball in the middle. And this real good kid would try to beat everybody off the dribble, and usually did. And anytime anybody came to help, oh, zone, that's a zone. They can't play that. Now, that's not a zone, is it? Same thing with you. Now, you said they're trapping in the half court, right? Now, to me, that's a zone. Like, because I do some refereeing now, and I hear they're playing zone. And I say, well, tell somebody, run somebody through. So let's say they're in here somewhere. So take an offensive player and run somebody through, and we'll watch and see if anybody follows them or not. So they shouldn't be playing that, in my opinion. Now,
that's what we would do, is I'd end up breaking it up and trying to get them to run through and be like,
yeah.
watch. And I'm going there,
Yeah.
watch, he's not following.
Yeah.
But what in the case, like, it's more so when they're bringing the ball up the court, they're trapping in the corners, right? And so then it makes you have to try and play that way as well, right?
See, so again, is doubling the ball. Like, let's say the ball is coming up here. Is sending two people and doubling the ball where everybody else is still, is that a zone? I don't know.
You're allowed to trap the ball.
You're allowed to.
Far away from your player, right?
Okay.
You can trap the ball though too. You can trap the ball, then you have to rotate, which is a man-to-man situation.
But as soon as the ball,
But once it's passed out, then you got to find a check. Yeah, but you can trap the ball.
But it's too bad that, again, we should have a general agreement. I'll use a gentleman's agreement or a gentlewoman's agreement that we're not going to do this. Like, why make it complicated? Let's just play straight man at a young level. Like, what is this? This is grade 8, 9, right? Yeah. Like, why get into this?
like, even when I would try to pull a trap at the corner there, then I'd have referees say, no, you gotta find your check, and I was like, the fuck, we're allowed, and I get confused over those things.
The refs are confused too.
Well, most referees try to avoid that. Like, they say we're here to
They're not
call the
involved.
rules, not your special rules for the conference.
I prefer not to play that way, but when everybody else is playing that way, oh, that's
The only suggestion I would give you is if there is any kind of preseason meeting of coaches, discuss that at that time. And let's come to an agreement here, ladies and gentlemen, as to what we think is best for the kids and not. And let's just stick to that. So we don't get into these, is that a zone, is it not? Well, only if they're 3 feet plus 16 minus the square root of 10. It gets way too complicated. You know what I mean? Or I'd like to think there's a certain, what are we going to call it, spirit to the rule? That we all believe this is best for the game. So let's do what we think is best for the game instead of getting into a lot of this gray area. Where I believe it's a zone, you don't think it is, and let's just agree to do what we think is best for the game. Whether that helps or not, I don't know, but it's worth discussing before the season. Question, yeah.
Well, that first initial practice that coaches come on to, they have 35, maybe have 40 students in the gymnasium. Do you have any words of wisdom or some trades, let's say, so to speak, so that first initial monthly practice can be the most successful and kind of set the tone for practices down the road? Because I know that if I can introduce anywhere 30, 40 children, I might be a little overgrown.
Yeah.
So to speak, with my first.
That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids. A lot.
What do I do then?
My first reaction would be that if you know there are going to be that many, approximately, get help. At least for the first, like you could say, would you mind? I know you can't do it all year, but at least for the first 2 or 3 practices, can you come and help? Because there's just so many kids that we need to have, break them down into smaller groups and all this, and I got to have as many active as we can, and try to get some help first. You know what I mean? But you're right. That's in a way it's bad, but it's good that you have that many kids that are coming out. Because I bet there are people in this room who are thinking, boy, I'd love to have 35 kids coming out. You know what I mean? Like some call tryouts and maybe 6, 7 kids come and then they're beating the halls looking for more bodies. So it's a good problem to have, but still a problem nevertheless. And get some help and be especially organized in those first few. Do what I would call maybe just stations. So you have one station where they're working on, say, passing. And then set the clock, and after 10 minutes, we rotate. And now we go to the next station, they're working on dribbling. And then we rotate every 10 minutes. And you have maybe, 4 stations of 8 kids. You know what I mean? And they're rotating stations. And you try to keep them as active and as engaged as possible. So you would need yourself plus maybe 3 others. 2 if you can get them, then you only have 3 stations of 10. You know what I mean? And rotate these, they do that in camps, right? It's the same problem in a camp. You can have a basketball camp and you have like 50 kids. Now you can't work with them all together, or it's very difficult to with one group, so you break them down into these squads or teams and you rotate through stations.
And just being mindful that when you select drills, have drills where, like even that drill we did today in the end line, that line could be 2 people long or it could be 5 people long. Right? So your drill work always, it's not a finite number that you need for it, and extra is just going to stand. They're working their way through the drill, and there's places for them to stand and work into it. So you kind of need to plan, like you said, if I got 30, we have this for trials. So our provincial team trials, we could have up to 100 kids, we don't know. So we have 6 hoops, and we just plan, here's what we want to do, but if we have a large number, here's the drills we'll work with large numbers so we can keep the kids active, we can see them all, they're not standing too much. So a lot of it's just planning and trying to figure out stuff and what drills work, because basketball is, they say, is a simple game, but it's also a very complex game. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat. So if you want to do a transition drill, there's ones that limit you, there's ones that you could have lines out the door if you want, right? So you got to pick the stuff that accommodates you. And then conversely, people have 8 kids. I coached at UW Collegiate for varsity for a while. I had like 6 guys that practice half the time. I had to change all my drill work just so we can get some concepts to play, because I had all these plans drawn up for 12 or 14 kids, and they weren't as committed, as some other schools. It's more academically based school. And yeah, the odd exam, my parents have to study, and they wouldn't show up. So yeah, it's all over the place. You have to be prepared and have a nice little drill repertoire that accommodates your situations. Keep it simple is really good, yeah. And also have a backup plan, like have a few, like even today. So I knew we were coming to do a clinic. This one's supposed to be 4 hours. I got about 8 hours of stuff here. We're not gonna get through it, but however the group's going, I skip stuff, I jump to other stuff, whatever I felt that was gonna work better for this group. Same thing, we have a plan, has some extra stuff. You're never gonna get through it, but at least you thought about it, you have it there, then you just use it the next practice or the third practice. Or you say, that didn't work too well, and then you adjust, and you just go right to the next drill real quick. You cut that drill short. 3 minutes, not working. Okay, we're going to advance this drill and shift some pieces,
So they have like a max 5 drills for each of the various options.
Yeah, 5's lots. Like I like Ross's idea where, especially at younger ages, you pick some that you're comfortable with, or you think, well, maybe in the beginning you have 5, and after time you realize that 3 are good. And you say, okay, we're going to run XYZ drill now. We're going to run Superman drill now. The kids know it, they get right into it. They're still working the same footwork. They're still shooting the ball. I mean, if you have it so complex, you spend too much time figuring out new drills, especially at a young age. They like that comfort level. Older age kids, they tend to get a little bored. So it's nice to have little twists or add different ways for competition. So that's nice to have a deeper pocket there. But at the middle school years, they just want to learn how to play. They want to have success with their reps,
Comment.
I have a question. I'm coaching grades 7 and 8, and we only have 1 practice a week, Wednesday mornings. We have games on Thursdays. So
1 hour in the morning?
Yeah, 1 hour in the morning. So we don't have a lot of time to go over all the skills that we talked about at the beginning of the lesson. But then after a week, kids are going to forget stuff, right? So how do you suggest to address that?
Oh, yell at them a lot, that hard.
But you want to do more stations?
Well, if you can, again, you have help.
There's 2 of us, I think.
2, okay, so you've got at least 2 groups you can break down into. And if you can get other people to help just for that 1 hour a week, they don't have to come to the games or whatever and all that, it's nice. But if you can do that, break them down into, and then you get more stuff in. But I know there's always pressure on coaches, and I was there too, in that, we have to get ready to play the games. You know what I mean? And it's there, the pressure, whether we put it on ourselves. But it's easier said than done, but stay true to yourself in terms of okay, we got to get ready to play the games, but we also want to be teaching this game. And we're never going to be ready. Like if you wait till if you wait till you think you're ready to play the game, you'll never play, right? So you might as well play and use that as a learning experience, and say, okay, we've worked mostly on passing. That's all we've really done in practice. So in the game today, we're going to count the turnovers we have. You know what I mean? And that's going to be our emphasis today. Is just really think about a few bad passes and non-catches. You know what I mean? And that's going to be our emphasis. Now the score is going to be whatever it is going to be. But, as I say, try to be true to yourself in that regard.
So this is what I run into too with I've had for youth teams. And I've always fought for another practice time. That's the easiest way out. I had 1 hour with my 8-year-olds, and I said I want another one, then a 2-hour slot came up. So I'll take that 1 2-hour slot once a week. And I'll tell you a quick story. With my other daughter, I actually grabbed another slot. It was a 3-hour one. Friday night, no one wanted it. So all the parents were mad at me, but we all started off as one big blob at 8, 9. After about 2 years, that group was so far ahead of everybody, just as they, maybe five-fold. We had 5 hours of practice a week. Some were going 1, a lot were going 2, at least double. Just their skill set was way better after 2 seasons. And just because we put that extra time into them. But if you're stuck and you can't fight for another gym slot, that'd be my first. Say, give me another lunch, give me a morning, give me an afternoon. I'm doing the same thing. I'm coaching my daughter. I just went in. Said, you can only have 2 practices a week. You don't get the other sports. We got to share. I said, okay, we'll do 2 practices after school. We'll do a morning and we'll do a lunch before we can do skill work. If you can't do that, this is my suggestion. So you got 60 minutes. I do a warm-up, and I try and combine skills like we did with the cone, the dribbling. So we got a lot of dribbling there. You can create other drills where maybe there's dribbling and shooting, like a relay game where they're getting warm, they're working on skills. Then you got 20 minutes of concentrated skills. And it's still not a lot at all. But at least you could focus on shooting one day, maybe the next day ball handling, maybe passing and ball handling, 10 and 10. And then you want decision making. Okay, I put situations there. So at a young age, we used to do a lot of just 2-on-1. Just 2-on-1, 3-on-2. Then you can do 3-on-2 with a transition, where now they got to kind of go from a disadvantaged situation to playing a bit. And give them a few guidelines, like a pass, cut, and the other one fills on a 3-on-3, like some simple stuff. Make decisions. And the last, we always end up defaulting to like 3-on-3-on-3 continuous, or 11-man continuous, or even 4-on-4 full court. 5-on-5, okay, but it gets the kids don't touch the ball enough. So really what happens is I think I'm doing a great job coaching all these situations, but they can't play with crap because they haven't had a chance to free play, figure it out and compete. And every time I come home, my daughter, I say, how was practice? How did you like it? Well, I liked the last 15 minutes. It was really good. Like they always want to compete, they want to play. You have to trick them into learning, and then somehow, hopefully that translates into competing. But at younger ages, these are probably the most important, skill work, and then let them play a bit and try those skills out a bit. Because you want them to get better with their skills. You also want them to come back, right? And they have to have fun and enjoy the game. Decision making, you can make that quite fun, right? And it's still competing. It's a step up into competing. But this is actually, we're going to go over a practice plan, and the LTAD model gives a prescription, so to say, of percentages you should allocate towards these areas depending on the age of your athlete. Right? And so it shifts. As you get older, strategies and tactics, it's a big pyramid, so it looks like, I'll draw all the Ross's stuff here.
Is that a dry erase marker you're using?
Mine is, yes. I hope yours is too. So what it looks like is this. And I think it's tactics, strategies, this is fundamentals. So skills, decision making, strategies, tactics. Okay, we'll just do it like that. And they give percentages. So at a certain age, the 12 to 15-year-old group, you're more evenly allocated. At a youth age, they would wipe this almost right out. There'd be fundamentals and skills. There'd be a bit of competition, but you're not talking about how to break a press at an 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid. You're just wasting your time, right? And I think Ross made the point that it doesn't matter what you run. If the kid can't put the ball in the hoop or dribble down the court, You could have the best player in the world, but I think there was a video. Yeah, so if you don't have the skills, you're not going to be good anyway. I'd rather have a bunch of kids that are really competitive and have skills but don't know how to play yet. We can teach that a bit later. But if you miss this building block down the bottom, you've handcuffed those kids. Right? So a good analogy I always use is pretend they're your kids. So I had kids, right when I first started getting this education, one of the first things I heard was from Esteban Bali, which is the author of LTAD. He's world-renowned scientist,
the guru.
Canadian. He's a guru.
We worship at his idol every day.
I don't know if his job still is, but it was with IMG, International Management Group out of Florida, and they harvest athletes, basically. It's a school, a training center for young athletes, and they turn them into pros. So he worked with a lot of tennis players, managing their career from a young age to peaking. And that's his science. And so he helped Basketball Canada put together this model. He's flown all over the world. So I was at one of his seminars, and I had a young daughter at the time, and he said, if your kid is not exposed to these three core motor skill areas, and they were athletics, swimming, and gymnastics, they'll never reach their genetic potential. And I was like, oh, started writing down notes. My daughter was like 3 at the time, but I was like, I gotta make sure I hit this window. And I don't know what the number was. Like if you could be a 9 flat 100-meter sprinter, you're now a 9-1. Or is it mean you're a 10-second sprinter? I don't know. I don't remember, and I don't know if he gave a number. But it helps, and you see it with people by accident. Like you said, your son-in-law just played a lot of sports and unlocked his potential. And you see a lot of other kids, you see they're pretty good athletes, but they're not very skilled in sport. And those would be kids, I bet, that didn't play a lot of sports when they were younger. So their physical literacy wasn't maximized before they went on to play a sport they enjoy. An example, New Zealand, their education system, I want to say up to high school, but I don't want to lie to you. So at least middle school, they have to play 4 different sports in phys ed class. So every day, they choose a sport, handball, soccer, basketball, and then the volleyball. Their 5th or double day, they get to choose their favorite. They play basketball twice a week. And that's how they do their PE classes until a certain age. And then they allow them to select their sport that they're having success in, they enjoy. And they implement that in their school system. I don't know if we could ever do that, but that was a way they really believed in it. New Zealand, England, all these smaller English countries really adopted Esteban stuff early. And now the bigger countries that got by just on depth of talent are starting to take notice because these other ones are having success. Canada's having success internationally. You know, and now these other guys with all the athletes that are blowing athletes up left and right. Like how many LeBrons really are there out there in the world? One made it to the league. He's a freak athlete. Maybe there's 5 more that blew up because the guy started specializing so early or just played like crazy. Not to say LeBron didn't. He might have played basketball for 9 years, but he made it through for whatever reason. You got a question there?
No, I was just going to say, you know, I read a little while ago the story of Cindy Klassen. We all know the speed skater and all that. I didn't know much about her other than she won all these gold medals. She never started to speed skate until she, I think, was 19. She never did any speed skating, but before that, she was a soccer player, she was a badminton player, she played all the school sports and things like that, and she became, and I think what happens with a lot of this early specialization is we miss those late bloomers. You know what I mean? The kids that are potentially, that's a bad word, I hate that word, but you know, but just never seem to get there, and you know, the ones that come out of the late, like, you know, that kind of thing. Because we're always looking, like too often coaches pick teams at a young level. We pick the kids that are the most athletic, who already skills are developed reasonably well, and we ignore, and a lot of times it's the bigger kids, the ones that are clumsy, and like me, you know what I mean, and all that you know, trip over themselves. They're going to take a lot longer to develop.
And they say the kids, the late bloomers, are the majority of elite athletes. So the ones that actually do make it through, those end up being the best ones. But too often they get caught up in our system, right? And part of the system is you select early maturers early. They get all the praise, the confidence, the extra coaching, and they continue on. The other kid gets discouraged, so he's just gone. So as coaches, yeah.
We heard that when we were at a conference in Halifax, speaking about hockey, ideally, and
Yeah.
other sports. Somebody who's born in January versus
Yeah.
somebody born in
Outliers book, yeah.
September
Yeah.
and December. All the maturity, all the experience, all the confidence boosting happens for
Early.
them.
With our,
From about 14 to 17 years old.
shift a little bit. I charted our provincial team. So we have a 14U, a 15U, and a 17U team. So our 15U and 14Us for sure was at least half were first half of the year born, probably a lot more. There's only a couple in the last quarter. And as we got older to the 17s, it spread out a bit. But the question is how many kids got blown up along the way that didn't get to that spot? Because you pick, and we're the provincial team, so we're the provincial team. We're supposed to go compete in the nationals and win. And earlier on, before, my job's only 4 years old, 3 years old. So there wasn't anybody in my position. There was just, you're hired as a coach, go and run your program. And I was a provincial coach 10 years ago. So I ran my own show. I wanted to win. I was coming right out of playing college ball, professional ball. I was just about competing and winning. And I was as guilty as just as anybody. I just select my best team for the next 3 months. And then the more I'm getting educated in this, the more I'm really trying to preach to our coaches, especially the 15U and 14U. You're picking for that kid for when he's 20. You know, pick some of the best kids for sure. Pick the kids that'll help you in the summer. Keep an eye out for the other half of your team of some late matures, some kids that have potential that you think you could help develop into a player down the road. You have a question?
I heard you say earlier about your drill repertoire, and I know there's a lot of first-time coaches here, and
Yep.
you guys have that basketball background, and for the coaches that are here who don't have that background, who don't have that drill repertoire, what do you suggest for them?
Well, our website, number one, is very good. So basketballmanitoba.ca. Well, no, we're not tooting our own horn there, but there's a ton
Let's
of
toot our
resources
own
on
horn.
there. Yeah, well, it's a ton of videos. So a lot of people don't want to read. There's written practice plans. There's a practice plan exchange. So you can see what a practice plan looks like from different levels. There's written description of drills. There's videos of drills. There's a ton of resources on there. And now with the internet, there's even more. We also have a library. We just donated our whole library to Coaching Manitoba on the second floor of the sport building downtown. There's books, old school books, and all our video collection is there. So if you want to sign out a book or video, you can start adding to that. I'd also add, I got a couple binders at home that I just started writing my favorite stuff in. Because you forget it, man. Like, you forget it quick. And then you see a guy like Ross said a few things today. I'm like, yeah, that's great. I remember doing that way, way back then. You find a new way and you just leave it. And then you gravitate towards something else, and maybe for older kids. Then you're back to young kids, and you don't know how to take a couple steps back. Right? That V-cut drill is all I've ever done, but I'm going to do that one, the shorter version, with my younger girls, for sure. And then just start building your book, talk to people, grab stuff. I would caution against getting too much, because like I said, it all kind of comes back to the same thing. So pick what you're comfortable with, pick what works for your kids, pick what works for your age level. He has his hand up there.
Yeah, and checking the website out there, like the videos, at least the ones that I saw, was this triangle and circle pattern. And then I went to, I went to the live drills and I saw the differences. But I only saw, the Moses and video Moses, but I actually didn't see bodies. So I went to YouTube and I actually saw layup drills. Like I should see.
We have videos as well. When you go to Coach Resources, videos, there's a whole bunch of segments. So you went to live drills?
Yeah, I went to
That's an actual program where you draw them and write with them. If you go to some of the other tabs, they're actually filmed videos. Like this is being filmed right now. This will be on. So people get a chance to see, here's that V-cut drill. What? Under coaching, you'll see videos, and there'll be all types of tabs. There's the Super Coaches video, Super Coach Conference. There's all different types, yeah. All access, where you walk in and just film a practice, like we're a fly on the wall. And so you just see what it'd be like to be at a university practice. I told you, my daughter's grade 10. That's a young one. We did middle, a little older than that. So the good examples of practice there. Where's that? Yeah.
Oh, and for myself, I was getting hired into my drill, so I actually phoned up the sergeant coach, and he let me come and watch one of the practices.
Yeah.
I went to St. James, went to Stuttgart school there, so sometimes just asking other coaches, hey, can I come and watch one, or can you run this kind of stuff in your practice every day? I know in our division, I mean, not that I have a ton of great stuff, but if they ever want to come watch one of ours, would be welcome.
And going to other practices, you may not necessarily use all their stuff, but it stimulates ideas for yourself. And again, that's why I wanted to give you this little framework of progressions, loading, and phases. Get an idea, just map it out what you want to do. And as long as it kind of goes logically along, the kids will learn from it. And they have some competition in the end, they'll enjoy it.
Would you recommend having JVs rather than doing that right now? We had a Christmas break. So I'm going to have it down. I would recommend them to check out the website for the stuff that they're going to get
Yeah, I would. One of the best things that I learned a bit late was when I started coaching, I got a hell of a lot better as a player. I was not even thinking of that big picture, how this works, what coach wants, what my teammates are doing. I was just worried about me, the ball, maybe a couple of decisions. The more I played, I got a little better at it, but it really went off. I started coaching around 20. I started taking coaching courses, my levels, around 28. And then it started to click. And I was playing pro, so I was lucky, but if I wasn't playing pro, I would have been done. And then a light bulb would have went off. So it helped me for my last few years, but if I ever had young kids, and I would want them to coach, volunteer, take the community coach course that Ross teaches, a one-day coaching course for younger kids, have them volunteer and coach, and they'll really improve. They'll really improve their IQ for basketball and what's needed for it. And it's a good way to get involved and stay involved and light that fire a bit. So yeah, so if they can watch coaching videos, watch a bit more basketball, they'll only help them become more familiar with it. Yeah, even put some in charge. Say, pick a couple drills you like. You're in charge of playing 2 real good one-on-one drills for when we come after. And they'll research it. They'll find some good ones.
I used to do that when I got kind of tired. I'd say, okay, on Tuesday's practice, you two are going to have a new dribbling drill for us. So you come and you're going to teach it to the group. And it was fun to watch and they had to.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, it's good for them to do that.
We did that with our CP group, the 12 to 14-year-old girls, just this past week. And they were good. They picked 3 really good drills. And the girls really played hard. And we're like saying, okay, because they kind of know what they enjoy as well. It wasn't a crazy drill. So once we heard it, we said, yeah, great, teach it. They set it up and they went hard for 10 minutes. And the next girl taught a drill. That was really good. Pardon? Yeah. Yeah. And we just said, of all the drills we've done this year, I want you to pick a drill, a good shooting drill. And it helps us too, give us feedback what they enjoy. Because to us, it's all the same. We're teaching footwork and shooting, but that's the one they clicked into, right? So it gives you some feedback as well. Okay, I wanted to go over the planning of practice. So a lot of us had questions on that still, like how to plan a practice. Yes, no, feel good. So that's a big issue, and a lot of it's just, so if you're teachers, it's very similar to your practice plans, right? If you go to the LTAD, if you just Google Basketball Canada, LTAD, Long-Term Athletic Development, they'll have this stuff broken down for you, what to teach at what ages. They'll give you these little pyramids with the percentages. And they even have a practice plan here. And I cut and pasted this and sent it to one of our convention coaches. I went by his practice, and it was a little disjointed. It was kind of big picture, small picture, big picture, full court, half court. And I remember always as a player that I like to progress through it. I got to warm up. I had to do fine motor skills, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. So that it just built on each other. It made more sense for me. And then we competed in the end. And sure enough, there was a breakdown of this in the, I'll email it actually to Greg. This is part of the package. So it's a full breakdown, but basically I'll just paraphrase it really quickly. So the first part, they say allocate 5% of your time to warm up. Okay? And that could be, like we said here, not quite 5%, but you can do your math on that. You can incorporate skills in there if you like. You can combine. So people that are tight for time, you have to be real creative, right? If you got a lot of time, you can maybe focus on one thing a little harder, but be creative. Then the first, so that's movement prep, and that's also skills, getting the blood. I used a lot of it for speed work, especially young kids under 14. Great time for speed development, nervous system development. No man makers or suicides or stuff that builds lactic acid. Just quick stuff, reaction stuff, races, speed. You can combine it with skills. It really helps the kids. Coordination stuff. The second part is individual fundamentals. So individual fundamentals, and it says 30% of your practice. And this one I pulled, I believe, is for 12 to 15-year-olds. So is that the majority of people in here? Coaching 12 to 15-year-olds? So this is the breakdown for that age group. And the second part, individual fundamentals, says shooting, passing, dribbling form, dribble start, pivot foot, dynamic one-on-one is what we worked on today. Combination drills, dribble, pass, shoot. That's what Ross did a little bit of. Headman, you could add defenders in there if you want to load that up a bit. And then defensive skills and abilities. We didn't touch on that yet. But then working on that. So really kind of the kids learning breakdown skills. The third part is breaking down your offense. 30% there as well of your time. So that's offensive and defensive breakdown. Okay? And what they mean by that is decision making. So even loading that drill where the guy came off, the curl cut, and there's a weak side defender, that's decision making. That's the second part of your practice. Decision making in the half court and the full court. Handicap situations where you have one person touch a line and he's trailing the play, so it's a 3-on-2 with a trailer, which happens in a game a lot. So something like that, just quickly. So you can do, this is a great transition drill for offense. These are called disadvantage drills. So you have offense on the baseline, defense here, coach has a ball, usually on the side so you don't get run over, and you throw the ball to one of the three players. And whichever player, defender's in front of that player, that guy has to run and touch the line. And you pass to this guy, he takes off. And they all take off. The defense has to learn to stop the ball, protect the basket. The offense, either you center the ball, he'll run ahead, and we learn to space lanes and make decisions. You can do that 2-on-2 disadvantage, 3-on-3 disadvantage, 4-on-4 disadvantage, 5-on-5 disadvantage.
Started out. As soon as I passed the ball, they got into it.
Put them on the line.
And so all of a sudden, when the defense was trying to come back, they caught the offense by half court.
Yeah. That's just you stopping it and not allowing the drill to proceed. And that's part of the error detection, error correction we talk about. It's not only footwork and skills, it's discipline. Because all kids at all ages will start to cheat the drill. They want to compete and win.
You can do that also where the defense, the X's on his board there are sitting down. So now they have to get up and then go and touch. You know what I mean? So it gives it a little bit more time again. You know, so that's just a way of making it easier, harder, whatever, based on the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that with 60 minutes especially, I would try and combine as much as I could with the kid having a ball as much as I could. All right? So in a youth practice, up to here, a ton of touches. Here, almost everyone should have a ball. Here it's 3-on-1, 2-on-2, it's a little tougher. And then when you compete, it's usually one ball, you know, because you still got to play the game and learn the game. But always, especially at youth ages, the thing that drives, he has his pet peeve, my pet peeve is when there's everyone standing around and 2 or 3 kids are repping out something for 2 minutes. Then 3 more come in, they stand. There's got to be more creative ways to do your drill work where everyone's involved. Right? If you're doing a demo, fine, but then everyone's got to get involved. Even if you can't supervise them all, at least they're touching the ball, they're going through actions. You could walk down and fine-tune it a bit later. Okay, and then the fourth part is your half-court and full-court offense and defense. That's the other 30%. This is your team stuff, right? So we'll just say team O and D, all right? This is individual fundamentals.
But the breakdown, yeah.
Yeah, offensive breakdown, offensive defense breakdown.
It could be 2-on-1s.
2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, that dynamic one we did, curling, and make decisions. That transition drill, yeah, that's in here. And then this is team stuff. So what are you running specifically? Our break is first guy runs to the rim, next one goes to the corner. Your team stuff. So that's the last 30. So only a third of your practice, not even, should be. I mean, I understand you're starting your games. I've done it too, where I spent the whole practice putting everything in, and then we start to work on the breakdown, the fundamentals, because we at least have to have some organization to play. But try to refrain from just only working on your systems. I know it's hard, especially with limited time, and you got parents saying, "Oh, they look like crap. Are you teaching our kids how to play?" And I've had it too. And I work for the province coaching basketball. I have parents come up to me and say, "We're doing the same things over and over." And I said, "The kids still can't do a layup or shoot yet. I'm not going to move on to complex play. They're not ready for it mentally, first of all, and the skill set they're not either. So you're not doing the kid any favors by rushing them along. You're doing them a favor by giving them this bottom, that foundation, even if the parents get in the way sometimes, because it happens." And then the last part, which I'm probably guilty more than anybody of skipping because you always run out of time and the next group's in, there's a cool down. All right, and younger kids, they don't know how to push themselves as hard, so the cool down to me is a little less important. Older athletes, for sure, they need to cool down. It helps prevent injuries. They're building up lactic acid. You want to flush that out. A great way to do that is shooting games. And you get a chance to shoot again. So that 7-Up game we showed you. You do a team 7-Up or team bump. So you get 5 people in a row. 5 down here. We just did this actually the other day. So we just have, and so you just scrimmage, right? So you got 2 teams already. Say red team down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 6. 2 balls. Shoot, get your own rebound, pass the next person. You got to make 10 as a group, then you move on to next spot, next spot, next spot, next spot. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes. They're competing. We did it. It was like through the roof. It was like a 1-point margin of victory. And they're competing really well. They're keeping their heart rate up a bit, so they're chewing up lactic acid. They're burning through all the junk in their body. They're getting reps. They're having fun, and they're kind of winding down from a mental focus level that's pretty intense, what you should have in 5-on-5 and a lot of thinking and processing. Now they're just catching and shooting and competing a bit. And it's a bit of a cool down. And then flexibility has become an issue. It's been changing a lot lately, so I've been told lately that flexibility is actually done better a couple hours after practice, which at your age group you're not going to get. Professional athletes will cool down, they'll ice, they'll do other stuff, they'll warm up again a couple hours later and just have a flexibility session. Because throughout practice you're doing a lot of damage to your body, micro tears and stuff, and you don't want to do a lot of static stretching beforehand. Yeah, dynamics good for that, but then to really increase flexibility and range of motion, you got to get into the static stuff. But after, it's a whole separate session. So I don't think I'd worry too much about that now with your age group, but if you have some keen athletes that are into a lot of things and they have flexibility issues, that might be something where you say, next time you're watching a show at night, break those, do some push-ups and sit-ups, get your body core temperature up, and work on flexibility for a half hour while you're watching TV. It might help that kid out. So. A circuit would be good too. Skill circuit?
Well, just push-up lunges.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you have 60 minutes, can they do push-ups and lunges somewhere else other than the gym with hoops? Right? Maybe you can do it in the hall. Right? Speed work should be done while your body's fresh. So if you're doing nervous system work, fine motor skills, the adaptation is greater when your nervous system's fresh. If you're all fatigued at the end, you're going to do fine like the platter shooting, all that fine motor skill, and you're going to work on speed and reaction. It's not as beneficial. The nervous system's not ready to adapt. You want to try and incorporate that at the beginning of your practice. I was at University of Kansas, the Jayhawks. Any Jayhawk fans here? No? Nobody? You all hate them? What? University of Kansas, one of the biggest programs in the States. I went down there to watch their practice for a week. And surprisingly, in the first 15, 20 minutes, they had their strength coach come out. The head coach were just talking about their practice plan. And they went through all this dynamic and speed work stuff, little hurdle hops, dribbling a basketball. Even that age where they have the kids at a high level, they have time. They're incorporating all these multiple activities into that nervous system, right? And they did a real cool thing, developed, and it's quick, wasn't real long. And then they kind of got ready for their team practice warm-up. So that's what they did, and that's a high level. So it kind of reinforced. They also did monkey in the middle, which I always do with my kids. I was glad to see them do it. Ever see that one where you have 2 passers and a person closes out, you got to pass around them, they turn and chase? They do that for 2-3 minutes every practice. What?
I was reading about that drill. I wasn't sure if you did be keen on it.
That's great. I've done that at old and young. You just have to put some rules in and keep it quick. But it's really good for tracing the ball, learning how to pass under pressure, finding passing windows. A lot of good things in there that you can do quickly. You could. It was actually in my passing progression. We didn't get to it. That's one of the ones. So after we did passing, we have partners. Then after, so we were doing the triangle passing. We hadn't had defense yet. I was going to add defense after all the O stuff, on O stuff was done. 3-0 triangle passing, then there's going to be a defender in the middle. Pass around, then 2 defenders, trap and gap stuff. So you guys familiar with what I'm talking about? Monkey in the middle, we'll have offensive player here. We didn't get this in the passing stuff. Offense, defense. Sorry. So one person has the ball, this person has to close out. So this close out is where you sprint at the ball, and under control, you get under balance, hands up, and you trace the ball trying to deflect the pass or steal the pass. So this person here on the catch has to wait for the closeout, and then you have to make one successful pivot and 2 pass fakes before you pass. Otherwise, the kids will be, as soon as Ross comes, they'll go beep, 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 they throw it before the kid runs. The rule is you can't throw the pass above head height, because kids will just kind of, so you got to make them choose these passing windows over the shoulder or under the arms. And we talk about raising the windows. So passing windows, right? I got passing window here, here, and I always say right over the head. I won't do that yet at this age because you can buzz one right over the top of the head. It's really hard to get your hands there to block it. So my hands are up and I want to pass up. How do I open a window? I pass fake low, drop that hand, now that passing window just got really big, right? Even if the guy's in the middle, I can still get to both. I don't like the odds there, so I want to trick them. Fake high, pass low, and now my window just got 50% bigger. My chance for success just increased. Right? So kids thinking about that is a good thing to teach them. Because a lot of them don't think that. They just huck it and they don't realize why they get it. You tell kids, oh, the window, lower the window, then go up top. Go up top, then go low. It sounds real simple, we overlook it, but a lot of kids don't understand that yet. Oh, I'm sorry, arm length away. So you sprint, because you have to be able to touch the ball. So we say arm length. I always say you got to be able to tickle the ribs. So you got to be able to touch that person. Arm length away, we trace, trace, trace. If they get a successful pass past me, I turn, I sprint to the next person, trace, trace, trace. If they get one more, 3 is the max, then we just rotate. If I get a deflection, so this is how you can make it competitive. If I get a deflection, I'm automatically out. The person who passes in. And that keeps it going fast. It rewards kids that think and do it well. Okay? And like I said, the University of Kansas runs that 2 or 3 minutes beginning of every practice. It's just a lot. It's at a higher level, but
One pivot and then what's there?
we say when someone comes to you, you have to make at least one pivot, and then a pass fake or a pass fake. Because otherwise, kids they'll just run and they'll just wait, just go bang, bang, and they're not learning anything. The kid's taller, he just kind of throws it over your shoulder. So we make the kid handle pressure. He's handling pressure with a pivot, and then a pass fake, and then he has to complete a pass. So just by adding a few rules or limitations, we're loading the drill a little bit, right? It makes it a lot more efficient. It works better, and the kids don't lose interest. But the one in the middle, just run around and never get the ball. Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the, I'll send you the outline. It's got more detail in it, but it's also in the LTAD model. But this whole package, I'll email to Greg. He'll send on to you guys. Where are we for time? Do we have the court back now?
Yeah,
So the thing we want to get to, like I said, we got another 7 hours of stuff here, but we're not going to get through it, right? You guys, I think you guys got a good understanding of the phases, right? Everybody good with that? We'll send you the paper on it again. Loading. Loading is just adding variables. Progressing is just taking it step by step. Okay, just adding a little bit, another piece, another piece, another piece, another piece, right? And you can do that not only in skills, but you can do that in bigger drills. 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, okay? And then error detection, error correction. It's your job as coaches to help that kid get better, not to sit back and just go, yeah, he's not very good, he's not doing it well, he's not doing it well. And then that habit's getting reinforced, and you haven't stepped in. The hard part is not stepping in and making the kid feel like crap. Or, you know, because a lot of people are self-conscious. If you stop the whole practice and say, you're not doing it right, they're a shrinking violet, right? So either the drill corrects, or it's a general correction, or when you get a chance to talk to that kid later on by themselves, you talk about it. But it's very important that you detect that error. You have a critical eye, but you also constructively correct that error. It's real big. That's what coaching is, right? Really. Otherwise, you're just managing, right? So for the last part, we'll get on the court. We have an hour max. What do you guys want? Anybody like? Is there something we haven't covered? You got a unique situation. Could be anything from an end out to